I'm James Lynch, and this is my stock report for UFC 309, taking a look at the biggest winners and losers from the event. And as I always say, after I give you my top three and my bottom three, I would love to hear your top three and bottom three as well. We can have a fun discussion about this in the comments, but biggest stock riser for me on this card was Charles Oliveira. Really impressive performance. I know he got rocked at the end of that fight in the 5th round, but the fact he had such a dominant performance overall, this is going to get him that title shot, I would think. Him fighting the winner, I should say, of Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukyan. So he's right back in the saddle. If you think about Charles losing to Arman, really didn't know where he was going to go from there because that was obviously a tough loss. It did end up losing a split decision in that fight, but to go out there and dominate a guy like Chandler, and I know Chandler, say what you want about him, but this was a big card. He was the co-main event. This was one of the big highlights of the card. This is probably going to get Charles Oliveira that title shot. So that alone is going to raise his stock more than pretty much anyone on this card. Charles Oliveira gets it done. Very impressive performance. So Charles Oliveira, the biggest stock riser on this card. Second biggest stock riser on this card, no surprise here, it's Jon Jones. The reason I didn't put him as number one is because we kind of expected this to happen, right? There were some questions with Oliveira and Chandler in terms of, Chandler, could he knock out Oliveira? He almost did in the first fight. With this fight, you got a guy in Stipe who'd been off for a number of years. He's in his 40s. Nobody was really picking Stipe to win this fight. And listen, Jones got the finish. Got to give him his credit. Looked very impressive. But at the same time, this was sort of expected. So John's stock, I guess, goes up to a certain degree because he beat, one of the best heavyweights of all time. But he's not getting him in his prime. He's getting him at the tail end of his career. But you do have to acknowledge it. This was the main event. People have been talking about Jon Jones all week. So his stock has to go up just for the simple fact that he won the fight and he did what he had to do. But I wouldn't say his stock skyrocketed. If anything, as far as his stock with the public, that's certainly gone down unless he fights Tom Aspinall. But let's wait to see what happens there first, because I know there's going to be people like, dude, you can't put Jon as a stock riser because of what happened this week. Trust me, I get that, but let's wait to see what his next fight is. And if it's not Tom, then I think that holds true. We'll know the results of that in a little while. Then my other big stock riser on this card is Marcus McGee. Again, he was favored in this fight, but he ended up surviving. Looked like he was, he even said post-fight he was close to getting finished in this one with the leg kicks, but he perseveres. 34 years old. I don't think a lot of people saw this coming. He has now won 4 straight fights in the UFC. He's definitely going to get a ranking now after beating a ranked guy in Jonathan Martinez. Big move for him, moving up the ranks. I said it on my post-fight show. I think him and Rob Font makes a lot of sense with Rob beating his teammate Kyler Phillips. I think that would be a fun fight. So lots of good things ahead there for Marcus McGee. He's another stock riser. Let's do a couple honorable mentions. There were certainly a few. Got to mention Viviane Araújo getting the upset over Carney Silva. I mean, I don't know how much stock she sort of had going in, but that was an upset win. Got to give her some props. Oban Elliott was favored to beat Basil Hafez, but he finished him, so that's got to get some credit. Oban Elliott, really excited to see what's next for him. Got to talk about Ramiz as well, taking out Mickey Gall in the first round. That was super impressive. He was an underdog too, so he's got to get an honorable mention there. Really think if we see this version of Ramiz in his fights going forward, going to be very interesting. And then got to give a big shout out to Jim Miller, finishing Damon Jackson in the first round. It seems like Damon Jackson actually retired after that fight. Impressive for Jim. He's still getting it done at however old he is, 38, 39, 41. I was even off by that. So you got to give Jim Miller some props as an honorable mention. He was a big stock riser as well, getting that impressive finish on this card. Okay, biggest stock dropper. I think this is pretty obvious to anyone watching the card. It's Jonathan Martinez. Some really, really, really bad fight IQ. And then you combine that with the fact that he had a pretty bad fight in his last one against Jose Aldo. He was the underdog actually in this fight. But he had Marcus McGee. He had him on the ropes, and he could have, well, not the ropes, it's a cage, but you get what I'm saying. He had the ability to win this fight, and he didn't do it. And now he's lost 2 in a row, and all that momentum he had on that really good winning streak, where he finished Adrian Yanez, that's all gone, right? He's got 2 back-to-back losses. He's probably out of the rankings now. I really don't know where Martinez goes from here because this was a fight that he should have won, and he didn't. We'll see if he can get back. He's 30 years old, but he's got to have better performances than he's had in his last 2 fights. But yeah, I don't know what happened. We haven't really seen Martinez have this type of IQ in a fight, but I know there's a lot of people upset with how he performed tonight, and it was all over my timeline. And, even watching it live, I was like, I don't know what he's doing. So yeah, unfortunately, Martinez, biggest stock dropper. Second biggest stock dropper on this card. And let me say, this is just based off betting odds a lot, but it's Bo Nickel. Now I know what you're thinking. James, Bo Nickel won his fight. Why is he a stock dropper? He was a minus 1,300 in this fight. Actually, what was the exact odds? Let's get this correct here. He ended up being This loads here. A minus 1350 favorite. He didn't look like it tonight. He looked like maybe at best a minus 200 favorite. He won the fight. I don't think there's any debate there, but it was close. Paul Craig, give him some credit. I think he won at least one of those rounds in this on the 3 rounds. I think he won the first. It was not a good fight. It was unappealing, and this was supposed to be a fight, even from the UFC standpoint, I'm sure, where they're like, look, Paul Craig's been finished a couple fights now. He's 36. He's getting up there in age. Like, you should go out there and do what you normally. The UFC kind of gave him a good opportunity here to go and get another finish. Then we could start talking about him rising up. But instead, we get this like him eking out a decision. It just wasn't a good look. And then you combine that with the Brundage fight, which also wasn't. I mean, he got the finish in that one, but again, Brundage is a guy like holding on to his job. Bo's got a lot of work to do. Now, I will give him some saving grace here. He made his pro debut, 2 years ago? So cut him some slack there, but still, it's just the fact that he was a minus 1350 favorite. A lot of people felt like this was the next big prospect in the division. I think that's been put on pause for now. Bo's got a lot of work to do. He's got to look a lot better than the Paul Craig fight. So his stock definitely went down, even though he won tonight. And then the other stock dropper's got to be Carney Silva. Same thing. Wasn't a bad fight, but good opportunity for her to move ahead. She doesn't end up doing it. Loses to Araujo. Again, nice winning streak coming into this. And that's erased, losing to a much older fighter. Araujo's, I think, 37. Just bad IQ. Not a great game plan. That cost her potentially being in that contender spot. So Carney Silva, my other big stock dropper on this card. We'll do a couple honorable mentions. Michael Chandler's got to be an honorable mention because if he would have won, he would have been going to a title opportunity. So that doesn't happen. Now he's hopefully going to get the Conor fight or maybe Holloway. We'll see. But Chandler's stock dropped just because he lost. He wasn't expected to win though. And Stipe, obviously his drops because I think, I don't know, did he renounce his retirement? I'm pretty sure. I mean, this has got to be it for him anyways. But his stock drops just because, he didn't win the fight. And it wasn't competitive. Like, he didn't have Jones in any sort of trouble at all tonight. So I think that's also got to drop his stock a little bit too. So he gets an honorable mention on this card, as does Damon Jackson, who is favored and doesn't end up getting the win here. So that's where we're at as far as the honorable mentions. So quick recap here. 3 big stock risers for me: Charles Oliveira, John Jones, Marcus McGee. Honorable mentions: Oban Elliott, Viviane Araujo, Ramiz and Jim Miller. Biggest stock droppers: Jonathan Martinez, Bo Nickel, Carney Silva. Honorable mentions to Michael Chandler and Stipe Miocic. You guys let me know in the comments. That's all I want, guys, is I just want to know what are your top 3 and bottom 3. Let me know, and then we can have a discussion. Often what happens on these videos is people say, oh, I don't agree with this because of such and such. That's great, but just give your argument of what you think should be in its place. That's all I want with these videos, is you guys just giving me your take on what you think is the better option for your top 3 and bottom 3. I think this card's pretty clear cut, but maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong before. And I try not just to pick the biggest winners and lose, just the guys who won and the guys who lost. Like, again, I think all people would agree the Bo Nickel stock drop tonight. That's like an easy example there. So I don't know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like I said, give me your top 3, bottom 3. Let me know what you thought of this card. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.